Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven. Can't wait for this particular episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And joining me, as always, my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you, man. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. I heard there was some NFL things going on today. Odell Beckham is in a new place, so everything's going pretty well.
Yeah, everything is going pretty well. We'll talk about that for sure today. Tyler is here as well, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Just have to shout out my fiance Janae. Today is our 6th year anniversary of dating. Love you, hun. All that good stuff. And you don't really watch the show anyway, but I shouted you out because if I didn't, I'd be in trouble.
There we go. Well done. Also want to give a shout out to all the veterans today. Obviously a big day here in the States. Alex is obviously not in the States, so not a big day for him, but happy Veterans Day to everyone. Both my grandfathers were drafted into the Navy, so big appreciation for all those who choose to serve. So happy Veterans Day. That being said, I want to start today with the discourse on Kenneth Murray, because obviously there's been a lot of talk on social media about him potentially changing positions, becoming an edge rusher. Apparently, Brandon Staley said that he has always viewed Kenneth Murray as a linebacker edge hybrid. Today, Ronaldo Hill said that he was working with the edge rushers all throughout training camp, which was the first time that we had heard that. I don't think any of us saw that, but it is what it is. So Kenneth Murray potentially working more on the edge. We talked a little bit about this previously when Brandon Staley said that his role was, quote, evolving. Now we know that they want him to be in kind of that hybrid linebacker edge role. Brandon Staley cited particularly Dante Hightower of the Patriots, who's made a rather nice career of that. So has Kyle Van Noy. But Tyler, what do you make of this particular conversation now that we know that they are wanting Kenneth Murray to work as a linebacker edge hybrid?
So we've been to training camp. We went to plenty of training camps, and Murray was not playing any edge that I was aware of. I didn't see every training camp, but to my knowledge, and I think Arjun's and everyone else here, we didn't see him playing edge. So the idea that they always saw him as that kind of guy doesn't make sense to me. I think you talked about what the hell is his name for Micah Parsons working with DeMarcus Lawrence as an edge rusher. Well, we didn't see Murray working on that with, say, Joey Bosa. And it's not like Joey Bosa is reluctant to give information to other pass rushers, including a Jerry Tillery. He's always been, very vocal and helpful with his information. So we never saw him working with a Kenneth Murray. And the idea that they've always thought of him like this is surprising because they haven't tried him like that. They tried him as a middle linebacker. And granted, I think he had more blitz. Like it seemed like his blitz rate was going to be higher from the middle linebacker position.
Sure.
I don't think they even blitzed him out from outside of the tackle or anything, or as an edge rusher. Definitely a standing over the center kind of guy, rushing a guard kind of guy. And it was actually generally kind of ineffective. I believe of the 3 linebackers, he did have the lowest pass rush productivity. So it wasn't like the most effective thing. But now here we are. They're putting him as their edge linebacker hybrid. We'll talk about the Drew Tranquil situation in a bit. I think at this point, while I am concerned that he goes and finds out that he's not good at that either, and now he's not building himself up as an interior linebacker, which is a concern. I think it could sort of work. Micah Parsons, I guess for comparison's sake, Micah Parsons, his pressure rate in college was 22%, and Kenneth Murray's, granted on a third of the rusher snaps from the edge, was 18%, give or take a few points or whatever. So it's close-ish. That's a big jump. If you took a look at NFL stats, the jump from 22 to 18 would be like 20-something spots. But he can kind of do it. It's not like he was awful at it. So at this point, they need to find a spot for him. I'm glad they're trying it out. I just don't buy that they've thought all along that he was a inside linebacker edge hybrid, because we would have seen them cross-training that. And for all the talk of, the defense being multiple or even many players being multiple, we haven't seen them work that. We also haven't seen, for example, like Filer move to right tackle where he possibly could. I get the reason that they don't, but they talk about all these players being multiple, and Murray has not had the opportunity to showcase that. Now, could that have changed if he had stayed healthy? Maybe we're just not seeing everything.
Sure.
But they gave him, they gave him the scrimmage, gave him the preseason a little bit, I gave him a bunch of training camp snaps, and he never worked edge. So I'm glad he's trying it out now. I'm glad they're trying him there now. I don't buy that they actually really truly wanted to put him at edge this whole time, or at least in a hybrid role.
Yeah, I don't buy it either. I think it's just a product of it not working out, and then watching 6 games of Kenneth Murray, or 5 games was it, of him at linebacker, and then they suddenly go, oh, well, now we have to change it up. Yeah, so it's the last resort at this point. Like, he has to be an OLB, outside linebacker hybrid to see if it works. But yeah, I don't buy that this was always the plan with him, because it wasn't the plan in the last coaching administration. And from what we saw in training camp, like Tyler detailed, it wasn't the plan in this one either. So as far as my confidence level, I mean, I pretty much am at the same place I was last week, or the last 8 times we've had Kenneth Murray at edge discussions, which is that he's not Micah Parsons. He could work at and be decent at it. I don't really have a high degree of confidence, but I don't sell it either outright. Like, I think it could work, but I need to see consistent reps of it. Like, as much as we talk about, 8 pressures at 43 snaps at Oklahoma. Oh my God. Like, that's not what he would be doing as a potential permanent edge in the NFL, guys. Like, come on, we need more sample size. And so I just need to see it. Like, I think there's potential that it could work. But I'm not sold, A, that this was always the idea, like Tyler said, and then B, this is definitely going to work. I think there are a lot of bridges to cross to get there. We sold ourselves on Jerry Tillery at edge last year. That didn't work out. So, I'm sort of just very wait and see with the Kenneth Murray at edge stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the only approach. And like, I'm certainly glad that they're trying to find him a position. My thing is that I just wish that this would have been happening since the spring. Like, It's great that you think that he compares to Dante Hightower. Why are we not using him in that kind of fashion from the beginning is my thing. And I've been very skeptical of this whole conversation from the beginning. Like Alex, I haven't seen enough information. When he was at Oklahoma, yes, he had a lot of pressures. Yes, he had some pass rush reps, but it was a lot of stunts. It was a lot of blitzing. It's completely different, in my opinion, than what Micah Parsons was doing, who was legitimately lining up at edge and showing off legitimate pass rushing chops and working with DeMarcus Lawrence, as Tyler said. So the two situations are very different. If this is their plan for him going forward and it works, then fantastic. I'm obviously open to that. The edge rushers outside of Joey Bosa or opposite of Joey Bosa have not been good enough, frankly. I did credit Uchenna Nwosu with one more pressure than Pro Football Focus did from last week, but that's one pressure on 17 true pass rush reps. So it has not been good enough. And so I understand the thought process, like Ronaldo Hill was saying, we want this defense to be more versatile. We want this defense to be more athletic. That's great in theory. I just wish that this was happening from the start. And that's my thing is, could this benefit the defense? Sure. Could this benefit Kenneth Murray? Sure. I also think it's very difficult to make this kind of transition in the middle of the season. And everybody says well, Kenneth Murray wasn't working at middle linebacker. The reason it wasn't working at middle linebacker is a mental thing, in my opinion. It wasn't a lack of physical ability. It was he was not trusting his instincts. He was not trusting, or he was not reading plays in front of him. And so, yes, this could benefit him, but it could also be a detriment to his ability as an inside linebacker, because you're not going to get better as an inside linebacker by playing on the edge. So to me, this is a fun conversation in theory, but I'm very skeptical of the actual results panning out in a way that benefits Kenneth Murray and benefits the team. That's just the way. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, no, completely understandable. I wanted to bring up this one comment, just sort of a continuation of the conversation from Kelsey. Do you feel that Staley has a defensive scheme that requires people to mold over time into hybrid roles, and maybe these players aren't used to doing these things both physically and mentally? I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I say no, only because of the defensive backs that I've seen that they've been working with, whether that be someone who's a veteran like Chris Harris, who should be able to handle this mentally, or Tavon Campbell, who's moving all over the place. So I don't really think that they're over time molding into hybrid roles. To me, they had these defensive backs playing all over, even Asante Samuel Jr. as early as day one. So the idea that Yeah, it's different for. I mean, maybe it's different for linebackers. I don't know. Maybe you can coach guys differently, but I don't think the scheme overall, has them mold over time into hybrid roles. You'd like them to get better at it, maybe, but they were asking the defensive backs to do all different things, all from the start.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's different for the defensive backs because we have a lot of evidence of that. Like we have, several hundred snaps of John Johnson in the slot, or we have several hundred snaps of Troy Hill and Darius Williams rotating, and Jalen Ramsey in the slot and outside. Now we have Derwin playing, all over the place, and Tavon Campbell, like you mentioned, and even Alohi Gilman has mixed and matched. So the secondary definitely is multiple. The secondary is definitely hybrid players. But, I spent a lot of the summer, going back and looking at the Chicago defense, and, I didn't see Roquan Smith playing at the edge. I didn't see, Danny Trevathan playing on the edge. I didn't see a whole lot of, Akeem Hicks playing on the edge. It was pretty traditional in the front. Obviously, Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, we've seen them occasionally rush on the interior. But to me, they're multiple and hybrid in the back end, and they're pretty traditional in the front seven, from playing edge, playing interior, playing linebacker. Like to my knowledge, we've never seen a Staley, Fangio linebacker rotating at the edge. Like not Patrick Willis didn't do that, Navarro Bowman didn't do that. So I'm just kind of skeptical of the whole thing, and we just haven't seen a player like that in this scheme, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, also I think the circumstances have really justified like what they're doing, right? Whether it's oh hey, all our cornerbacks are injured or they have a concussion or whatever the situation is, and so we have to put new guys in there that we wouldn't necessarily try on outside corner roles before. Maybe we thought of them as more of a slot corner before, right? Like we talked about with someone like Tavon Campbell. And I also don't think it's that they really grow into hybrid roles. I also think the problem is that like a lot of people are talking about the Staley scheme, like because he runs that too high shell. Like the problem is they don't have the talent on the defensive line right now, and that's leading to all these other problems, I think, on the defense. Yeah. So to me, when we talk about guys having to do multiple things, I think there is pressure on maybe the second or third levels of the defense because of what that first level in the defense is, particularly against the run. But I don't think that it's really that they're trying to develop everyone in hybrid roles. I think it's more just that other players and other pieces have to pick up the slack elsewhere.
Yeah, the good news is I was looking through Kenneth Murray's draft profile, and I don't know how you felt this way, Steven. I didn't grade any of the linebackers or anybody last year, but three of the four guys at the draft network basically brought up, him reading coverages or reading, what the line was doing, what the running back was doing, and the plays in front of him as his biggest weakness. So now he doesn't really have to do that. So hopefully that suits him better. Did you find that was one of his issues coming out of college as well?
Yes, I did. It was a lot of see ball, get ball from him. And that was the other thing too, is a lot of his pressures and sacks would have, he did a ton of quarterback spying at Oklahoma, like a ton. And it makes sense in the Big 12 where you have a lot of these mobile quarterbacks. So the issues with Kenneth Murray as an inside linebacker are all mental, in my opinion. And that's just kind of the main reason why I'm skeptical of this whole thing is like, you're taking away the experience aspect of things if you're giving him 10 to 15 snaps. And that's the thing, like, it could be, 5-6 snaps a game on the edge. It could be 20. We don't really know where their vision is at with this kind of thing. But to me, like, his role is as an inside linebacker, and Brandon Staley was very emphatic of that in the spring. Like, that's the other thing we have to talk about too, is that he was asked pretty clearly during OTAs if Kenneth Murray was going to be playing on the edge or on the inside, and he said flat out, Kenneth Murray is an inside linebacker for us. He's going to play off the ball. And now we always envision him as an edge rusher. We look at him as a Dante Hightower type. Okay, but do you really?
Right. No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I guess my next question then would be, if he plays edge, who loses snaps here in this situation? Yeah. Is it Chris Rumph, who's the worst rookie pass rusher right now in the NFL, minimum of 30 pass rush snaps? Is it as simple as, Kafaka rolls out? Is it just put Bosa inside and then Murray's outside? But then again, Fackrell's usually the guy on the outside if Bosa plays inside. So whose snaps is he taking here? Who do you take off the field?
Yeah, that's the thing too, is Like you drafted Chris Rumph as an edge rusher. You have a Chen Nwosu as an edge rusher. Kyler Fackrell. These players are legitimate edge rushers, and so I don't know. I messaged you laughing about Lane Johnson going up against Chris Rumph and how much of a mismatch it was.
Oh boy,
poor guy. Like we couldn't get any reps against Jordan Mailata. You had to put him all against Lane Johnson.
I mean, Jordan Mailata was dragging Jerry Tillery into the end zone too, so I don't know how much it would have helped. And he was working on Covington, so
true, absolutely. Mailata's very good too, but I'm just saying, like, it cracked me up because Lane Johnson, he would latch on, and then it looked like Rumph was just like paralyzed and couldn't move. So I don't know. Like that's the other thing is like, sure, he's probably better than Chris Rumph at this point. Rumph needs to bulk up quite a bit. But Rumph also needs those snaps to develop.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of iffy there. Fackrell and Nwosu haven't been great. But like I said, they have years and years and years of experience at that position. And even though they're kind of struggling, I still trust them more than Kenneth Murray out there.
I just want to watch Kenneth Murray play again before we talk about Kenneth Murray at 45 different positions. Like, let's just get him back on the field before we talk about all these hypotheticals on Twitter. Just play, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, guys. Any other thoughts here before we dive into this matchup? All right. So as always, we're going to give our big picture takeaways here from the Chargers matchup with the Vikings. And I'll start this one off. I think for me, it's what Vikings team are we going to get in this one? Because we've seen the Vikings go into Arizona and play an incredible game, at least on offense, and theoretically should have won that game. We've seen them play really well for stretches against the Baltimore Ravens, take them to overtime. We've also seen them lose to the Detroit, or almost lose to the Detroit Lions, needing a last minute, 35-second drive with a field goal to beat the Detroit Lions. There's talk of Mike Zimmer potentially being fired soon. There's talk of obviously the COVID situation with the Vikings is not great right now. So to me, it's just what Vikings team is going to show up in this one. Justin Jefferson has gotten like 5 targets in the last couple weeks, which just makes zero sense. And so the Vikings are incredibly streaky. They are incredibly inconsistent. There's a lot of drama surrounding this team. So I'm just kind of curious to see how locked in are the Minnesota Vikings, because if they are, I think this is a matchup that kind of scares me, especially with all the injuries and now Drew Tranquill situation. So if the Vikings are locked in, I'm nervous. If we see the Vikings that played the Detroit Lions, I'm not that nervous. But I think there's a legitimate case to be made that this team is a playoff team. I think there's a legitimate case to be made that they're probably headed towards a top 10 pick. So I don't really know what to make of the Minnesota Vikings as a whole. And I'm hoping that this game kind of provides some clarity for them, because this is an interesting matchup. Like I said, if the Vikings are all locked in, then I'm a little nervous. If they're not, then I think the Chargers probably should win this one. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Vikings. They
remind me a little bit of like the classic 2015 to like 2020 Phillip Rivers Chargers, where they're like they're always like one game from elimination and one game from being a top 5 team and one game from the playoffs.
Yeah,
because they can always be that. But my main storyline is the elephant in the room. I mean, it's Dalvin Cook. How are you going to stop him? Because geez,
and Madison's good too.
Yeah, Madison's good too. Like, man, geez. I mean, look, we just played the Eagles. It doesn't matter what running back they put out there. It's going to be the same thing every time. It doesn't matter if it's Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, or Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison, frankly, at this point. So, it's just going to be what kind of adjustments do they think they can make? What pop does Kenneth Murray have as a linebacker that maybe calms the running game down a little bit? Because it's really bad right now. And I don't know how they're going to really adjust it, because as much as we talk about like, Justin Jefferson's only had 5 targets these last few games. If Dalvin Cook runs how Dalvin Cook can run against this Chargers team, like you might not need to target him more than 3 times. Like, I mean, that's just the reality of the game. Obviously I think Devonta Smith had 5 catches last week, but and Cook's Chris Harris, unfortunately. But I don't think you need to take too many deep shots considering what this Chargers run defense is right now. So I just think that's the biggest storyline for me. No other real threat, I think, in their offense. Like, obviously, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are good, and they're going to get theirs at points in this game. But I think they can sort of live with that versus if the Vikings can control the clock with Dalvin Cook and are just chomping away 5 or 6 yards per attempt, that's going to be really problematic. And we saw that against the first half in the Eagles game. Not so much in the second half. They did improve a little bit, but just, which team are we kind of going to get in this game when it comes to the defensive line, particularly the interior defensive line against Dalvin Cook in that rushing attack?
Yeah, as it pertains to the Vikings and which team will show up, I think the Vikings are right behind the Chargers for most one-score losses over the last 2 seasons. And I mean, at the rate they're going to surpass the Chargers. That team, for whatever reason, cannot hang in there in the end for all sorts of reasons. And as far as Cook goes, I think most of us didn't like the toss plays that the Chargers ran against the Eagles. I watched the Vikings and the Ravens game. I think like the third run of the game, Cook took a toss play of like 62 yards. And Justin Jefferson became a human windmill for whatever reason. So that was that play.
I saw that.
So stopping him, the over-under is probably 200 yards, and I'm probably still taking the over on that one. But the storyline for me, especially because I've been trying to pay attention to it the last couple of weeks, can the Chargers find and keep that same rhythm on offense that they showed against the Eagles? And frankly, I'm kind of tired of hearing the criticism of Lombardi following that game. That doesn't make any sense to me. It was an excellent game plan, and like 90% of the calls were perfect. Everyone wants the deep shot, and everyone asks for that deep shot. But most people aren't noticing the 3 plays out of the same look to 3 different players that set up that deep shot to a 4th player, and then a play after that deep shot that was set up by all 4 of those previous plays. So, to me, Herbert looked masterful, very comfortable in that offense. There was a play against the Patriots where Parham was supposed to block going down the line of scrimmage, and he didn't for whatever reason. And Herbert just could not find Mike Williams on the deep over. That same thing happened in the Eagles game. And Herbert, Parham, I think the edge rusher just took a very long, rounded sort of way to get there. So I think it was kind of awkward for Parham. Parham didn't block the guy again doing the same thing. But this time Herbert was able to find Allen on that deep over. Now, that's Eagles defense versus Patriots defense. But Herbert just looked very comfortable. And just let him be a smart quarterback, but also let him be an athletic quarterback. Lots of pre-snap motion, quarterback movement, like you said in your breakdown, about a third or a quarter of his throws, RPOs, getting the tight ends involved. Roberts got a carry. Eckler got a screen. We did barely see that. Allen got a screen. Allen was in the backfield on a play. Even the toss plays were good in theory, just not in execution. Although I think they did have 2 toss plays that had pretty solid gains in the 4th quarter. They look like they've moved towards an offense that fits Herbert's legs and his brain as much as his arm. But does that continue? I think it can if the offensive line holds up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen, bits and pieces of that throughout the season, right? Like the Chiefs were a good example. The Chiefs game was a good example of that. A little bit of the Browns game was definitely some aided by some coverage breakdowns by the Browns, but we saw it then too. But the Eagles game, Keenan Allen said that he felt like that was the most complete game the offense had played. And I tend to agree with that. I thought that they moved the ball pretty much at will. Again, the Eagles defense is not great. I saw one of the fantasy football guys pointed out that teams are completing 75% of their passes against the Eagles, which is just outrageous. So, it is, definitely have to take into consideration the opponent, but they were in rhythm pretty much the entire game. Tyler mentioned I did a breakdown on kind of the protection plan against the Eagles, and of course they didn't blitz a ton, but I love Lombardi's plan of attack against the Eagles, and I hope that we see more of that continue. Obviously did not love the toss play to Joshua Kelly, but outside of that, I thought Joe Lombardi had a really, really good day, and we need to see that continue. I thought he called a pretty good game against the Patriots, not as good as the Eagles game, so we need to see Lombardi kind of build off that. So I think that's a good point as well. Little nugget from Brandon Staley. He was asked about the Vikings running backs, and he talked about Alexander Mattison first. He didn't talk about Dalvin Cook first. He specifically praised Alexander Mattison, who is a free agent after this season. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Cool. Does he catch passes or get more than 1 yard? Because if he does, I'll sign him.
If he averages more than 2.5 yards per carry and can run faster than a 4.7, put him in powder blue.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But you know, to Alex's point, just getting back there, I think Justin Jones' return has helped this run defense, and I thought he had a really, really good game. Thought Lamont Joseph had a great game. It just like they're missing like a true like game wrecking edge rusher and then like really consistent play from like just one linebacker against the run. Like I think Traquel and White have their moments, but I think that, you know, you look at a team like the Browns who have Jadeveon Clowney, and like everybody always makes fun of Jadeveon Clowney, but the best thing that he does is completely wreck games as an edge rusher. So that to me is kind of what they're missing alongside, you know, getting an upgrade over Jerry Tillery. But I think the defense is kind of close to, you know, building some momentum in the run game. I'm not going to say like becoming an above average run defense, but I think they're close with Justin Jones to not being a complete liability.
Yeah, I think that they can be better. Obviously, you have Justin Jones and Laval Joseph on the field. But now Tranquil going out and then Kenneth Murray coming back into that linebacker role for now. Like Kenneth Murray wasn't doing too hot against the run, you know, when he was healthy. So that's going to be, I think, a problem. But yeah, to me, like, I think the run, because you have Justin Jones now, I think things are a little bit stabilized, at least. I don't think they'll be, you know, bottom 32 run defense every week. But I do think they at least need one of Jerry Tillery and Christian Covington to just not get pushed around. Like that's just frankly what they need from the outset. And if one of those guys has at least a reliable game, then I think the run defense can be pretty good on an individual week. If both of those guys are really struggling to like get inside and get run stops, then it's going to be a problem. Like, because then you just have two guys on your defensive line, in addition to, you know, potentially an edge player or potentially someone else that are just, you know, not getting any real push on every play. So like that's just kind of playing from behind immediately, unless you obviously have, you know, the safeties come down and blitz and stuff like that. But I think that's just the situation with run defense. But I think it's going in the right direction. We're going from 32 to 23, maybe
on a maybe
31 and a half.
Perhaps.
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to the injury updates. It's a much longer injury report than we have been used to the last couple of weeks. You know, we mentioned it. Of course, Drew Tranquil is kind of the big story. Well, there are a few big stories for this week, but Drew Tranquil, unfortunately, testing positive for COVID. He is vaccinated. I know that there were a bunch of people bringing up some of his past comments. He has received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So we know that if he tests negative for the next 2 days, he could theoretically play. Of course, that really depends on the positive or negative test. So we will assume we'll know that by tomorrow if he's going to play or not. So that really throws in a wrench into the whole Kenneth Murray edge thing, because if Kenneth Murray is activated, he's going to be taking all the snaps at inside linebacker. And so this is just an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Obviously, you wish, you know, we've never really seen these three players on the field all at once or like be in a rotation all at once. And it just kind of sucks for Drew Tranquil to be positive. Hope he's feeling okay today.
Yeah, definitely a surprise. Again, I'm glad he's vaccinated for this particular reason, not just to miss this or to try to avoid missing this game, but also the following game. He could potentially miss 2 games if he weren't. He is, so that's great. He might be back, and the Chargers definitely need him on the field. So the last time Tranquil didn't play was the Ravens game, right?
Yeah.
That worked out really well. So let's pray for something good.
Yeah, I will spend the next 48 hours praying for 2 negative tests from Drew Tranquil. I mean, that's just kind of the situation with it right now. I don't think they're as boned maybe as they would be against the Ravens if he doesn't play, just because, I mean, Kirk Cousins isn't the potential running threat that Lamar is, so at least you don't have to like take care of that.
But Le'Veon Bell versus Dalvin Cook.
Well, yeah, no, I think that part's true, but I also just think the Ravens running back doesn't matter as much, right? Like they can get Le'Veon Bell or Latavius or any Freeman, any of those guys who can like run on you just because Lamar creates that kind of space versus Kirk Cousins is not, intimidating anyone with his legs, so I think that is kind of the difference. Obviously Dalvin Cook is Dalvin Cook. But yeah, I can't say I have the most confidence if Drew Tranquil doesn't play, but I think this is a game they can survive. Potentially without him a little better than the Ravens game. But obviously, like, I'm very tentative on that. Better does not mean better is better than 34-6. But I don't know. We'll see what the kind of run game is this week. So I do hope that Kenneth Murray is a little bit better, because if Kenneth Murray truly is better than he was playing, and he's kind of got the injury and stuff figured out, then I think that the Chargers will be okay this game. If not, then obviously they could be in for a long day on the ground.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of that hinges upon Kenneth Murray's potential return. And I'd be curious to see if he does come back in this one. Are they giving him 100% of the snaps? Are they rotating Amon Ogbongbemiga in there? I saw him a couple of times against the Eagles, on film when I didn't notice him in the game. So, that could be something to keep an eye on. But I can see what Alex is saying, because the Ravens with Lamar do so much option heavy looks, because, that's really kind of the focal point of their run game. So it's a lot more taxing mentally as well as physically. Whereas with, playing a traditional run team like the Vikings, you just have to kind of read where the blocks are going and go make a play. So I can see what Alex is saying from a linebacker standpoint, being, a little more comfortable with Amon or Kenneth Murray in this one. But that's going to be one to keep an eye on. Another thing that we haven't really talked about is Ryan Smith. He has torn his ACL. He is not on injured reserve yet, which I'm pretty confused at, given that, traditionally we see that happen almost immediately. Brandon Staley did confirm again yesterday that he did tear his ACL. So we haven't seen them bring in a corner. We haven't seen them activate a corner or any of that kind of stuff. Which I'm pretty concerned about, because I would like to have seen some kind of move made this week, especially with Michael Davis potentially being out and Asante Samuel Jr. on concussion protocol still. So I'm a little concerned about the cornerback room in this one, and I haven't even talked about Chris Harris yet.
I don't think you need to.
I just kind of thought that the corresponding move for Ryan Smith was going to be Kenneth Murray. I mean, obviously, like, they could activate
that's
Deontay
true.
Thomas or something, or we'll see what that happens. But that's sort of what I thought they were going to do. But there's kind of a monkey wrench thrown into that now, because now Drew Tranquil's on COVID reserve and he might not come off for Sunday. So then you probably have two spots to fill, one which will be Ryan Smith for Kenneth Murray, I guess, and then Drew Tranquil for someone else. Potentially in the practice squad. So we'll see. The cornerback room does concern me. I talked about this even after the Eagles game. I was like, good performance from the secondary, other than Chris Harris. But, you do have to play Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen next week. And despite, the Vikings not quite having it together with those two this season, this would be the game to figure it out without Michael Davis there. But I think if Asante Samuel plays, they'll be relatively fine. But if they're losing Samuel and Davis again, that is an uphill battle to climb, in addition to the uphill battles that we've talked about in the linebacker room and defensive line room.
Yeah, their injury that we haven't talked about yet that I'm most concerned with is Nasir Adderley. I don't know when he got hurt or what happened, but him did not practice the last 2 days is not a good sign. I thought he had an outstanding game against the Eagles in run stops or run support, in coverage, on special teams. He showed up on special teams too. And so for him to be out in this game against Cook, Jefferson, Thielen, and then you also had the Vikings kickoff returner return a kick for a touchdown last week. So
that's right.
Everywhere you're going to need a Nasir Adderley, and he's not there anymore, which also might take Derwin James away from the box to help against the run. It's a big injury. That's the one that concerns me the most.
Yeah, I thought Nasir Adderley was fantastic against the Eagles. I love the way that he is seeing things and playing physical. I know that Daniel Popper was asking the coaches about the lack of turnovers, but I think he's close in that regard. I'm just so impressed with the improvement as a tackler and seeing just things from a mental standpoint. So that one is definitely concerning. Although Staley said that he was sore on Wednesday, so maybe this is kind of the Joey Bosa treatment, Mike Williams treatment, where they just hold him out of practice and then let him play. The good news there, Austin Eckler too, thank you. The good news there is that Alohi Gilman seems to be trending towards playing, which I can't believe that sentence came out of my mouth. Alohi Gilman has been really solid, I think, back there. So I think Gilman and Adderley will be okay. And I think that's a much less significant loss than dealing with another week of Michael Davis being out. And Brandon Staley did say on Wednesday he feels like he's a week away. Asante Samuel Jr. is in concussion protocol, like I mentioned, but he's practiced in full the last 2 days. So getting Samuel back this week would obviously be huge.
How is he allowed to practice if he's still in concussion protocol? I didn't realize that's how it worked.
Well, the whole protocol, right, is you have to pass these tests and you have to build and build and build and build. So the protocol is just to make sure that he is progressing and make sure that, when he practices that his, headaches or whatever the symptoms are not popping back up. So I think Samuel has a good chance of playing this week, which is obviously huge.
Yeah, that's huge. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
The other one, another player who seems to be a week away is Justin Jackson. So we're looking at another week of Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree. So I
love those guys.
Yeah, so they're just great people.
Yes, they are.
I tweeted this out when I was watching the film back, and I just it's such a tough watch. Larry Roundtree gets quite a big push from the offensive line on a crucial second down, and he runs right into the defensive player who's being blocked by Steven Anderson. And there's it's literally do anything else, man, anything else. Joshua Kelly, I think it's such a weird fall from grace, right? Because he did play so well in the first 2 games in the training camp. But I think the biggest thing for me from a Joshua Kelly standpoint is that as soon as he makes contact, his feet are stopped. He gets stonewalled and does not move forward at all. And so I think you look at Austin Eckler talked about this, his strength or one of his strengths is that he is always keeping his feet moving. He's always looking for more yards after contact. And that is not really happening from Kelly and Roundtree right now. So that's a big problem. I said after the game that I would prefer Darius Bradwell at this point. Just give me someone who can create some yards after contact besides Austin Eckler.
Well, I mean, I think the real problem to me is also that Austin Eckler's banged up, right? And so you can't ride him as much as they were maybe earlier in the year, or he's going to break, right? That's sort of the problem. Yeah. So the fact that they don't have someone right now, usually it is Justin Jackson who could relieve stress off of him. I do think that is pretty problematic. And, we just got to kind of hope every week that, hey, Joshua Kelly gets it going, Larry Roundtree gets it going, and we're good. Not much confidence I can have there at this point, though. So I'm just got to see it first. But I think, Justin Jackson seems like he's probably going to be out this game. And that's unfortunate also just from a receiving standpoint, because they don't think Roundtree and Kelly have much value in that department either, whereas Jackson can. So got to have to be another Austin Eckler balls out kind of game.
God, I do not want to watch these two again. But if I do have to watch them, I guess as a criticism of Lombardi, get them some targets, get them some sort of pass, a screen pass, a swing pass, whatever. Try to get them involved in some way that isn't a run play. It honestly feels like Kalen Ballage again, where every time he's in, it's a run play. I know these guys aren't receiving backs, but try something different. Otherwise, everyone's just going to, no one's going to pretend like it's a pass play at all when these guys are in. I mean, well, sure, but you expect a run out of these guys. Do something else with them, because at this point they have 2 catches. Do something else.
Yeah, I know with Roundtree in particular, it's a run up the middle or he's a pass protector. So it definitely is. From their standpoint, I definitely would be frustrated at the usage, but I need a pulse from those two. Man, if they could get 25, 30 yards as opposed to 7, that'd be a big step up.
Although I think the narrative certainly would have changed. The narrative certainly would have changed if Herbert had handed it off rather than thrown it to Parham in the end zone. I think they're on the RPO. As a Roundtree play that he could have walked in behind Filer or whoever it was. But that's one play, And I think it was because of the line, but the narrative sort of would have changed. So maybe this week he just hands it off.
Yeah, absolutely. So Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa are on the injury report right now. I'm pretty certain that they will play. Obviously, it's not ideal, but I assume that's just them being careful. From a Vikings standpoint of things, Anthony Barr has not practiced either of these 2 days. He's listed as a knee injury. I was talking with our Vikings preview host yesterday, and he did not seem pretty confident that Barr would be playing in this one, just kind of given the discourse from Mike Zimmer. So if he's not able to play, that means that we would see Nick Vigil, former Charger, starting against his former team next to Eric Kendricks.
That's great. I know how that game's going to go then. Did you see who got an interception last week, though, for the Vikings?
I sure did. We will be talking about him in a second. Don't you worry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Then I won't say anything.
Okay. The other injury from the Vikings, defensive tackle Michael Pierce, has not practiced this week and doesn't really seem to be playing either. His backup, James Lynch, is also on the injury report, listed with a toe injury. So Anthony Barr, Michael Pierce not being out, I think definitely helps Austin Eckler and the Chargers run game, in my opinion, given what we know about those two backups.
Yeah, I mean, I also think potentially you kind of got to mention their COVID situation as well, because they haven't had a ton of guys test positive after that. I forget which player it was that went to the hospital, but I mean,
Dakota Dozier.
Right, Dakota Dozier. So, but there's also incubation periods and stuff like that. So there's guys who've gotten COVID later than the initial contact date, and so that's going to be something to watch over the next, 72 hours really until game time as well.
So we just have no news on that. Like, is it just there's no news, so we assume they tested negative? Like, is that what we're assuming?
Yeah, I know that Zimmer said yesterday that they're all still trying to figure out who has been close contact, who is not. So everything is business as usual as far as I know there. But I think he's mentioned like 27 players like potentially at risk. So of course, Harrison Smith is not going to be playing in this matchup because he tested positive and is not vaccinated. So, and then you have Dakota Dozier as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on tomorrow.
I suppose Minnesota should just forfeit the game then. Just save us the time. If you have 27 players test positive,
safer for everyone.
Safer.
I agree. Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's move on now and talk about some of our key matchups. I see some of you in the chat asking some questions. We will definitely get to those after we finish our episode, so don't worry. But let's talk about these key matchups and X factors. Alex, we'll start with you. What is the matchup that you are most concerned about or focusing in on this week?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess last week I did sort of talk about Keenan Allen versus Darius Slay, and then Keenan Allen versus Darius Slay didn't really happen. It was sort of Keenan Allen on a lot of guys, and chewed them up and spit them out.
Slay was mostly on Mike Williams.
Yeah, and got unfortunately bullied by Parham on the run to the end zone. So yeah, no, I mean, I think it's really Keenan versus the Vikings DBs. I don't know if they're going to throw one particular DB at him. Obviously, you have Bashaud Breeland there. That could be a thing. But I think it's just going to be interesting to see how they go about it. And I think they need another big game from Keenan again. Obviously, kind of got back into the swing of things last week. So this is sort of a game where I think they need him to step up, obviously, and then that opens the door for Mike Williams and all the other options, like the Eagles many times double covered Keenan Allen. And so, if you do that, that leaves Jared Cook open and he'll get to the end zone or close to it, right? So I think how the Vikings decide to cover Keenan Allen this game is going to be really intriguing and key to the offense, right? Especially because the running game might not be that great if Eckler's banged up and the other two running backs aren't producing. So I think it's going to kind of be on Keenan Allen to create a lot of that space for himself and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the way that the Chargers used him last week was pretty typical of what you had seen with Phil Rivers and Keenan Allen. A lot of place and space, quick game, things like that. I think one of my little complaints about Joe Lombardi. Please give the yards after the catch plays to somebody else, because that's just not Keenan Allen at this point in his career. Would love to see Andre Roberts get in those, Josh Palmer, somebody with a little more quickness after the catch, because they had the one like quick screen to Keenan Allen, and he could have gone outside, could have gone inside, and easily gotten, at least 8 yards, and he got tackled for 4 yards. So I would love to see other players get those opportunities. The key matchup for me of this one is Justin Jones and Linval Joseph against the Vikings interior offensive line, and specifically against in the pass rush, because you have Garrett Bradbury has allowed 17 pressures through 9 games, which is the most in the league amongst centers. Oli Udoh is their right guard. He's allowed 21 pressures, which is the 10th most in the league. He left last week early, a little banged up right now, but he practiced in full today. And then their left guard, Ezra Cleveland, a guy I was pretty high on in the draft. He's been solid, but he's allowed 16 pressures, which is tied for 21st most in the league. So theoretically, this is a matchup where Linval Joseph and Justin Jones should be able to really make an impact as pass rushers. I thought Justin Jones had some really good rushes. I credited him with 3 pressures. PFF credited him with 2. I credited Linval Joseph with 1. PFF did not credit him with any. So we've seen some really good moments from those 2 as pass rushers. And I think we might see a big game from one of them as a pass rusher, just because the interior of the Vikings offensive line has not been very good, particularly, like I mentioned, Garrett Bradbury and Oli Udoh.
What a name. That kind of bleeds into my key matchup, which is 1, the edge rusher versus Christian Darrisaw, and 2, Joey Bosa's movement. I liked Darrisaw a lot. He wasn't far behind Slater as my OT3. He's played pretty well despite having no training camp or preseason, and not playing, I think, the first 5 weeks of the year. Only 4 pressures allowed the last 3 games against a good variety of edge rushers.
Yeah.
So that's one I'm going to watch just purely for my own draft grades. And also, I want to see Joey Bosa, and I think he will work more inside this game. I talked to Arjun about this. Arjun suggested that this is possible, and considering those numbers you just said, that makes sense.
Sure.
Maybe it gets run for Murray on the edge or whatever, or just get Fackrell and Mosu out there. Bosa's sack versus the Eagles came on a rep versus a guard. Brandon Thorne gave him the high quality sack for it because he smashed the guard into the quarterback to cause the sack.
Awesome.
So amazing play for sure. So the interior it can be had, and so I want to see edge rushers versus Christian Darrisaw, sort of, because you got to beat the tackles to get to the quarterback, but also I want to see him for the draft grades and see how he progresses. And B, let's have Joey Bosa go against these guards, because it's worked. It's a great way to get him one-on-one, and these guys aren't very good apparently on the interior. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Ready for Joey Bosa to be playing on the interior a little bit more. I think that is something that he has mentioned and said after the Patriots game that he thought that would happen anymore. It happened a lot against the Ravens. I think like 18 snaps or something like that he had that day came as the 4-eye against the guards. So interesting in that one. So teased him earlier. X factor of the day. Usually I pick a Chargers player for this one.
Let's hear it.
It's Cameron Bynum of the Vikings, because he was somebody that I loved in this draft class. I had him in my top 50. He was a cornerback for the University of Cal. Now he's playing safety for for the Minnesota Vikings. And in his first start in place of Harrison Smith, he had 11 tackles and his first career interception. He was awesome on Sunday against the Ravens. The issue is that he's a rookie. He's playing a different position. He played free safety and slot corner primarily in the preseason. Now he's playing strong safety in Harrison Smith's absence. So I am curious to see how the Chargers, kind of attack this thing, because they also have Cameron Dantzler, who's not been playing very great on the outside in Patrick Peterson's absence. And the Minnesota Vikings have primarily been a top 5 passing defense in DVOA rankings. And so their pass defense has been kind of the strength of the team after they revamped the secondary. So I'm curious to see, particularly if Cameron Bynum can keep that kind of game up. Is this a more of a bounce back to the mean? Does he struggle? Because, he's going to be lining up in coverage against the Chargers tight ends, against Austin Eckler. So this to me is an X factor. I guess you could put it as a key matchup. But I'm like Tyler mentioned with Christian Darrisaw, I'm curious for my own draft purposes about Cameron Bynum. Get to see him up close and personal this week. And just really can't wait to see how the Chargers potentially attack that one.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron Bynum was a guy both of us liked, and we were really surprised at some point that the Draft Network had him at like 300 or something crazy. You could take him in like the 19th round at that point. But him playing safety is great. I think it's a great spot to put him at. Him playing strong safety, I actually kind of like, because he was really solid against the run. I thought he had really good instincts. He just wasn't much of an athlete. I didn't think he was much of a outside boundary follow a guy one-on-one corner. But as a safety, I like that for him. So I'm definitely interested in watching that. I didn't realize that's what he was doing, and especially in place of Smith. So that's a good one there. My X factor. Okay, I'm going to get it right this time. He's going to be active this time. I'm going with Trey McKitty. And I'm assuming he's going to be active this game as well. He wasn't the last time I picked him, but he had some really good blocks. I remember at least 2 of his blocks helped spring runs of 10 plus yards.
He did.
Maybe they get involved in the passing game. The tight ends were definitely involved last week. I don't know if they'll go, give McKitty a reception in this game, because they went to Cook and to Parm and to Anderson. So by the time they get to him, I don't think they're going to do anything with him in the passing game. But as a blocker, he looks really good. I think if he continues that momentum, great. That would be, especially if all the tight ends continue to progress, that's a reason to let Jared Cook go. I thought Cook was super reliable against the Eagles and did a really, really good job. I don't think he dropped anything, and he did really good after the catch. But if you have a blocker like McKitty, I think now you can officially put 3 good blockers on the field, because Cook is kind of hit or miss as a blocker. Some of it's like getting in the way fine, or it's just kind of terrible. Whereas McKitty's like an actual blocker, like block one guy, climb to the second level blocker. So if you get him as a blocker, Parham as a blocker, Anderson's a good blocker, sort of in a different role. That's a really, really good trio of blocking tight ends who can also do something. So he's my X factor. Does he have 4 snaps? Sure. But hey, I don't want to pick a starter. I like him as my X factor this week.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with Tavon Campbell. I think that he is kind of the most important X factor in this game, sort of regardless of whether Asante Samuel Jr. plays or not. So you're going to need him as the kind of prototypical speed guy anyway, either to potentially put him on Jefferson or Thielen, really either one. We're assuming obviously Michael Davis won't play. ASJ is up in the air as to whether he passes concussion protocol, but after watching film of Chris Harris on Devontae Smith, I want literally anyone else than Chris Harris on Justin Jefferson. It can be anyone on the field, the ball boy, I don't care. Just put someone else other than Chris Harris on Justin Jefferson. So to me, that person probably is going to be Tavon Campbell this game. I think Asante Samuel Jr., that can be him on some plays, but I trust Tavon Campbell a little bit more with his kind of speed and instincts at this point to just go one-on-one with a guy. I think ASJ kind of plays a little bit all over the field. Also he's also his first week coming back off the concussion protocol. It doesn't seem like the smartest thing to just stick him on Jefferson the whole game and let him go. So I think that's kind of going to be Tavon Campbell's spot this game. So, and I sure hope it's not Chris Harris, because that will create some problems on the post-game podcast. But whatever his role is this game, I think Tavon Campbell, with his speed, with his instincts, in place of Michael Davis, is kind of going to be the most important quarter on the field.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. And, the Vikings, they really rotate their 3 main receivers. KJ Osborne is kind of become that third one for them. They kind of rotate them all around. Osborne has taken the most snaps out of the slot of the 3, which is good. But I also think, this team would be smart enough to realize what is happening for the Chargers in the slot and get Justin Jefferson more often there. So I think that having Tavon Campbell follow him and maybe, kind of shadow him like he did Tyreek Hill, I think would be a much better plan of attack in this one for sure.
Could be a draw, not a draft implications. Well, kind of like a free agency 2022 implications sort of day for him. If he has a good game, granted, it's only one good game, but he's been building to this. Yeah. I don't really think he's had like a true, like he's going to be the starter versus an excellent receiver for an entire game sort of game. And so if he can play really well here, that's a great reason to maybe not take a DB so early next year. And of course, let Chris Harris Jr. go. So I'm really hoping for a good game from him, because he's built up to it. He's earned it. He deserves to have a good game. And if it is a good game, we can get rid of Chris Harris.
They should move on from Chris Harris if Tavon Campbell poops his pants on the field. Cap wise, dollars wise, age wise, doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I it's so funny to me. Like the coaches have definitely developed like their go-to coach speak. And whenever they talk about someone that has not been performing well, it's like, well, he's doing everything we ask. It's like, okay, coach, but like, come on.
He has a pulse,
please.
It's such a low bar. Like every time that they've been asked about like Jerry Tillery or Chris Harris or like anybody that's been struggling, it's like, well, he's doing everything we ask. That's a very low bar, coach. All right. Let's any other thoughts here on key matchups or X factors, guys?
Nope.
No. I will say really quickly, I think Everson Griffin against Rashawn Slater is really an interesting matchup in this one. Griffin has really primarily rushed against the left tackles this year. He's having a really good season, kind of a resurgent season for them. He's got 30 pressures, which is just one less than Joey Bosa. So he's tied for 19th most pressures. He's got 5 sacks. So he's having a good season. So this is going to be a little bit more of a test than Derek Barnett last week was, who Rashawn Slater really clamped. So have the full confidence that Slater is going to have a good one, a good performance in this one. But Everson Griffin, I think, is somebody to keep an eye on. Maybe they move him to the other side, like we've seen from the other rushers against the Chargers.
You know, I'm going to give credit to Storm Norton then, just aside from, you know, this matchup. Like last week, I thought he played pretty well. Can he handle Everson Griffin? But he played pretty well last game, and I have some faith in him.
He did. All right, let's move on to our bolt predictions. We do this every single week. It's been a fun segment for us. Alex, we'll start with you. What is your bolt prediction of this matchup?
Yeah, I picked Devonta Smith under 50 yards last week, so I'm stupid. Don't listen to me.
Well, you also got the score prediction right.
Yeah, I did get that right, so I guess it balances out. So I'm going to go Mike Williams over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think that's relatively bold given his last few weeks where he's sort of been sprinkled in the offense here with deep shots. But I think they get back a little bit to that more quick passing game with him. Maybe sort of in a sense like we saw a little bit against the Chiefs. I think you could see a little bit more of that. So to me, I think that this is a game where they get back to the Mike Williams thing, or I'm kind of hoping they do. I mean, I like the deep shot from Williams to Herbert last week, or from Herbert to Williams last week, but I want to see him a little bit more involved play to play than just that. Obviously, he did what he had to do, and he did what the coaching staff asked of him. But I would like to see him a little bit more involved in the offense from play to play, just because I think it makes them that much more lethal when him and Keenan Allen are sort of both going off or are a threat to pick up a first down every play. So I'll say, maybe let's say 8 catches, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown.
I like
awesome,
it. Okay.
Man. Yeah, that'd be awesome because I think, the narrative around Mike Williams has kind of changed from the first, few games. Of course, some of that is due to a lack of usage. Some of that is due to him not being on the same page as Justin Herbert. So I would love to see that for sure. My bold prediction, I teased it a little bit with my key matchups. I think we see 3 sacks from the interior pass rushers in this one, and I'm going to include the linebackers. So we've seen Kaiser White and Drew Tranquil be used as blitzers a lot. I think this interior trio of the Vikings is in a really bad spot. So I think 3 sacks from interior Chargers rushers.
That's a great predictions, guys. I'm going to go with a really stupid one. So we've not talked about this player in coverage, and I think he deserves to be mentioned more as a player in coverage because every time I watch him, and I don't specifically watch him, but I've been watching a lot of his pass rush reps, and I've had to watch him drop into coverage a couple of times. I say Joey Bosa gets an interception this game.
Ooh.
He's been dropping into coverage. I swear, he actually looks kind of good at it. Not that he's like a linebacker good in coverage, but he understands his responsibilities very well. I think he's always pretty glued to a guy, unless there's a sort of what's it called? Extension of the play, and he has to move or whatever. Not really on him, but based on what he has to do, normally he looks kind of good. So I'm gonna go with a Joey Bosa interception this game.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
He could get the. I was gonna say he could get like the Melvin Ingram rolling on the ground one that he had last year. Yeah, so that could be
let's
a
do it.
Busta special.
Come on. It's
That would
happening.
be amazing. That would be amazing. All right, let's get to some league picks. I think this is an interesting week. I believe I get to go first this time. Is that correct?
Either way, have at it.
Okay, sounds good. So my first pick, I'm gonna take the. Let's see. I'm gonna take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Washington football team. That one's pretty easy. So I'll take that one. I'll take for a more fun pick. Don't really want to pick anyone in the Green Bay game, given that we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is playing or not. Man, I lied. This week kind of sucks.
So. I feel like we've been saying that more increasingly every week, but this week really sucks for picks for like 5 weeks in a row now.
Okay, so I'm going to take Tampa Bay over Washington. I'll take the Colts over the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then upset pick of the week, I will take. Don't love that one. I'll take the Philadelphia Eagles over the Denver Broncos.
Oh, that's gonna bite you in the ass. I've been there, done that way too many times.
It's like the only one that seems like kind of appealing to me, so that's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay, all right. I don't know who's second though.
Oh, is it me or is it Tyler?
Don't care.
I think Alex was first last week, so I think Tyler.
We could Tyler go.
Yeah, Tyler go.
All right. Hopefully my teams don't screw me over again for whatever reason. I can't believe I couldn't gain ground on Alex, despite the Bills losing to the Jaguars and that being his pick. I still couldn't gain ground on him because of my other picks, like the Rams screwing me over. But this week, I think I've got it. I'm going to take the Steelers over the Lions. I'm not going to pick the Lions in the upset because I've done that twice and it's bombed hard. So not that one. And then I will take the Bills over the Jets. That seems about right. But Mike White is starting, so I don't know how that's going to go. And the Hall of Famer Mike White is starting. And the Bills just lost the Jaguars. So it feels risky, but a bounce back big game is in order. So Bills over Jets. And for the, I think, second or third time this season, for my upset pick, I'm going to take the Raiders over the Chiefs. Not because I think Deshaun Jackson.
This guy with the what a Raiders fan.
Come on, man.
First, I was right before the Ravens game. I feel good about this one. The Raiders kind of have the Chiefs sort of number. They did beat them in Arrowhead recently. So I do think that they can pull this off. Now, there's no Henry Ruggs, so that's concerning. But I think the defense is fine. The offense could probably score. I think they'll bounce back from the Giants game. So crossing my fingers, Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
I knew Tyler was gonna go for the Raiders game pick like the whole time. Like
you can have the Browns one.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, yeah. So just to give an update on the Jersey pick GAC standings, brought to you by ExpressVPN.com/guilty, where you can go and watch the all 22 streams and live streams of all of these games in crystal clear HD quality. You can go do that for expressvpn.com/guilty. The standings are: I am 20-8, even after going 1-2 last week. Tyler is 19 and no, sorry, wait, I got that wrong. Wait, no. Okay, no, I'm 20-7. Tyler is.
You're right. I'm ahead of you.
I am 20-7. Tyler is 19-8. Steven is 12-15 as of now. So.
It makes no sense to me, man. I'm in first place in my work pick'em. Like, I promise I know what I'm doing. It's just this podcast thing.
Don't you work with kids?
No, the pick'em is with other teachers and counselors.
I know.
It's with adults. Jeez, we're not degenerate. We're not teaching our kids to be degenerates. We're the degenerates, not them.
So yeah, everyone went 1-2 last week, so it was kind of brutal. So I'm gonna try to rebound this week. No one took Cardinals over Panthers, right?
Correct.
All right, we'll take Cardinals over Panthers. So that will be my first pick. I assume someone took Steelers over Lions. I wasn't listening.
I did, yeah.
Oh,
thanks.
I'll take. Did anyone take Cowboys over Falcons?
No.
Not doing that again.
All right. I will take the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Falcons. I think they rebound from what was a poor effort against Denver last week, come out, win that one. I guess I'm rooting for the Cowboys for the sake of picks. Great. And you know what? I will ride with the Saints over the Titans. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself as an upset pick. It theoretically doesn't make sense, but it just feels like one of those games that shouldn't make sense, but does. No, I changed my mind. I was trying to avoid the Browns.
You already said the words, man.
No, I changed my mind. I'm going with the Browns over the Patriots. The Patriots are favored by 2.5. I changed my mind. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys over the Falcons. I'm going to go with the Cardinals over the Panthers. And I will go with the Browns over the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't blame you for changing your mind on the Saints, though. I've picked them to win twice, and they've lost both of those games.
It was one of those things mentally for me where I was like, oh, Jameis, and then I remember, oh, Jameis. So, yeah, then I had
Kamara's hurt.
Kamara is hurt, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but good job changing your mind.
Baker Mayfield.
Did you guys know that the Falcons are currently the last playoff team in the NFC?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's
really
wild.
The last playoff team in the NFC.
Yeah, they're the 7th seed right now.
And also, I think like
they are.
They are, yes.
What? You know who's the 8th seed?
Is it the Eagles?
Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers, baby. He's gonna lead them back to the playoffs.
Oh man, the Sam Darnold trade is the Sam Darnold trade is going to go down as one of the worst in history. They traded 3 picks to get Sam Darnold for 9 games, and now they're going back to Cam Newton. So,
did they trade a 2021 second for him? Like this year's second?
I think it was a 2021 4th, and then next year a 2nd and a 6th.
I was going to say they could have had Fields and Asante Samuel Jr. instead of Hornet, but never mind. They didn't have a whatever.
They could have had Fields or Mac Jones. You know,
yes.
Apparently the Panthers coach loves Mac Jones. So you could have taken.
And didn't draft him.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Nice.
That's like Staley and Cordero Patterson.
Cordero Patterson. I hate you.
He's now brought up Cordero Patterson twice without being prompted to do so. So that's fun. All right. So before we get to our actual Chargers and Vikings predictions, just want to mention we are going to take questions here in a little bit. So if you haven't asked a question, now is the time. Super chat is enabled. So if you want to make sure that we do answer your question, you can use the super chat feature. So I'll start us off with the Chargers and Vikings. I think this is 2 teams that traditionally play very close games. I do think that the Vikings will play a little bit more locked in than they have shown in previous cases. So I think this is going to be a close one, but I'm going to take the Chargers. I'll say 31-27. So I think they just cover the spread. I think they get either a last-minute touchdown drive or a last-minute stop to kind of seal it. So I think they win by a little bit more than a field goal. But I feel good about the offense, a little nervous about the defense, which is why I think the Vikings will score more than 24 points. But I do think the offense is in a good spot right now. So I'll say 31-27.
I'm fueled by my hatred for Minnesota, everyone in the entire state. I'm going to pick 38-7. Same score of the Eagles NFC Championship game. The Chargers will win 38-7 over the Vikings. Woo! I don't actually think that, but that is my pick this week. You know what? I think the Chargers are due for maybe a 7 or 10 point win, a more dominant effort. So 38-7. There we go.
Yeah, no, definitely in a game where they're missing their entire defense, that would be a game to hold them to 7 points. I totally get it. I'm certainly not that optimistic, but I appreciate your effort, Alex. If that happens and you picked 27-24 last week, hey, maybe you're 2 in a row. I'll just kind of shut up. Right now you're ahead in our Pick'em League too. Maybe you're just in the zone right now. But I don't envision 38-7 happening. So I'm going to go with 30-27 Chargers. It is very, very close. And honestly, in almost the exact same team or same players, same record on a different team, maybe I'd pick them to win. But the Chargers are no longer their old Chargers, I don't think, whereas the Vikings are still them old selves. And so I think that the Chargers can win on a last-second field goal. I think the same way they basically won this past week. So I do think they'll win. I'm very worried about this game, and I think we'll see what the injury report says. But because if players are now downgraded, or Tranquil's officially out, or maybe it's not the Samuel Jr. doesn't clear concussion protocol, that changes a lot. But I do think the offense is moving in the right direction. I think the Vikings offensive line can be beaten. I don't think they're as strong in the trenches as the Eagles. So I do think that they can pull this off. It's not going to be an easy game. Some people are overlooking the Vikings. I don't think it's an easy game at all. But I do think they can win 30-27.
Yeah, and if you want, as Christian Castillo just did, feel free to mention your prediction in the chat if you feel like it. But I do agree that this team, it's a winnable game, and I tweeted this out after the game. But going back to last season, the Chargers are now 7 of their last 10, in one-score games. So Justin Herbert really has injected some life into that kind of narrative. I think if this is a one-score game, I have confidence that they'll be able to do that. The 6-minute offense, 4-minute offense, whatever you want to call it, is really becoming the strength of this team. And I think that will absolutely play a part in this one. So I know that there were a bunch of questions about Dalvin Cook's status in this one, obviously due to the legal issues. Right now, though, that issue, the domestic violence issue, is still a civil case. It is his former ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, I don't really know if they were ever married, is suing him. So until it becomes a criminal case, the NFL is not going to get involved. So Dalvin Cook is scheduled to keep playing. Like I said, unless it becomes a criminal case, the NFL will stay out of it, which, it really pisses me off how that is the case. But at the end of the day, it seems like Dalvin Cook is going to be playing the rest of the season, barring an injury as opposed to a legal issue.
Yeah, the NFL is really funny with that stuff because they say, oh, it's not a legal case, it's a civil case. But it's like, video Ray Rice. Then we can do that. So when there's video evidence, we can do something. But when there's nothing that will get our asses flamed, then we'll do nothing.
Yeah. I also laughed, the NFL fined, or the NBA, fined Nikola Jokic $50,000 for a penalty, essentially, a bad penalty, but it was a penalty, essentially. And they fine Aaron Rodgers like $12,000, $13,000 for violating COVID protocols. So it's like the NFL really doesn't really give a shit about player protocol at this point.
Team Jokic, by the way, fuck the Morris brothers.
That's a take I was not expecting. Did you see that the Jokic brothers bought tickets to the next Nuggets and Heat game?
No way.
Yeah.
Theoretically, I should like the Morris twins because they're from Philadelphia, but I think they're like the most annoying people that have played basketball. Like, I just hate how they play.
Wow.
And he deserved to get pushed in the back. And Jimmy Butler is a fraud. He thinks that he could talk. Bad. He could talk 5 inches away from Jokic, and then he goes 5 miles away and he starts blabbering. Come on.
Yeah. A couple people asking about Damon Arnett. There is a 0% chance that Tom Telesco signs somebody who was cut from the Raiders for character concerns. So I don't think he's a good player. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I wouldn't want Damon Arnett if he was the upstanding citizen, member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and like did everything perfectly. Like, I wouldn't want Damon Arnett if he did everything great.
Okay, Alex, but what if he starts over Chris Harris? Would you put this guy over Chris Harris?
I mean, that's a toss-up. That's a pick-em. That's like one of the best money lines.
Oh my goodness. Well done. For those listening to this, Tyler showed on his phone, he showed Damon Arnett with his AK-47.
I mean, he keeps that strap on him, or strap Harris, like,
My God.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that's fun. All right, I'm not really seeing any other questions. Are you guys?
There was one. I think it's sort of what we're talking about. Do you think Josh Palmer, this is from Omar, do you think Josh Palmer have a breakout game this season? This season? Sure. And I think he played a very similar amount of snaps as Jalen Guyton. I think that should continue. They used him a lot. Wow, okay, it's almost identical. So yeah, they used him a lot. Is a pre-snap motion. But they have been working him out wide before. So I think he looks more involved this game. He is actually a big part of what they were setting up on those plays that I was talking about. So, sure, I think he has a breakout game coming.
Yeah, and you never know, like if Keenan Allen misses a game or Mike Williams misses a game, like I would have full confidence in Josh Palmer stepping into a full-time role. So I think it's been building, right? Like they've clearly had a plan to ease him, Trey McKitty, all these rookies kind of into their roles. But I really like that rotation. 26 snaps for Jalen Guyton, 25 for Josh Palmer. Is really how I think it should go. Like I mentioned, if you want to give Josh Palmer some yards after the catch play opportunities as opposed to Keenan Allen, I think that'd be a good way to build him up as well. I thought for sure we were going to get the over on Josh Palmer's 3 catches when he got his second pass like early in the third quarter. And I was like, yes, my guy. And then they didn't target him the rest of the game. So, but it's been fun. I think Josh Palmer is a good player. I think they're kind of building up his role a little bit. So I do think eventually we see kind of a breakout game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that it probably will happen is because of injuries. Like we saw Keenan sort of miss 2 games towards the end of last year. Mike sort of similar after a while. So if one of them, pulls a groin, has to miss some time, one of them, has to miss a game, then I mean, Josh Palmer at that point basically becomes wide receiver 2. So to me, at that point, he would be due for some yards.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, somebody asked if Tranquil is officially out yet. We do not know if he's out. He's just on the COVID list right now. If he tests positive tomorrow, then he would be out. So Thomas Martinez on the screen. O-line question: how can they help the right side this game? Similar plan as with Philly. So I think, obviously, you can feel free and go watch my breakdown of the protection plan. I think, the way that they moved the pocket for Justin Herbert was fantastic. I counted 11 snaps that they moved Herbert out of the pocket, which essentially is like 20-ish, 25% of his dropbacks. That's a great way to help an offensive line. I think the other thing that they did was obviously continue to chip with the running backs, with the tight ends. I didn't really see them send a whole lot of like double teams. Michael Schofield was kind of, doing his own thing against Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. But that's really it. I think, Kenny Willekes is the edge rusher who played last week alongside Everson Griffin. I'm not like super concerned about Kenny Willekes. He did have a sack last week against Alejandro Villanueva. So I think Storm Norton will be okay. I think this is another, good Storm game. I was not expecting 1 pressure against the Eagles, but I think this is another 1 to 3 pressure game. It's the next matchup for Storm Norton that I'm really concerned about. But I think Storm will be fine against the Vikings. I'm not expecting a terrible game from Storm by any means.
Yeah, I mean, I think Everson Griffin is less scary than TJ Watt.
Yeah.
So to me, like, this is a game for Storm maybe to build some confidence going into next week because he's gonna need it. So yeah.
Yeah, and overall, I think I didn't watch enough of the games prior to this and look at this or chart this, but it felt like they were doing more either 4 wide receivers or 5 wide receivers. They go empty or spread or whatever they could.
Yes.
And they just let Justin Herbert deal. Now, the offensive line did have to hold up, don't get me wrong, but they spread him out and he was able to just deal with whoever. I know, Steven, you were calling for that all last week, and they did it. It seemed like they were doing it more this game, at least compared to the Patriots and Ravens games, and it definitely paid off. Herbert was just finding anybody who was open. But then again, the Eagles defense they're honestly really bad. Like, they're actually really, really bad. That defense is awful. Like, I genuinely don't know if I've seen a worse defense. Sorry, Alex.
You don't have to say sorry. I'm in tank mode.
Yeah, Alex wants them to keep being awful.
I gave up like 3 weeks ago.
Lorenzo McDaniel asked if this is a Linval Joseph revenge game. I certainly think it could be that. I've talked about that quite a bit, but Garrett Bradbury is one of the worst centers in the league in run block grade, and he's one of the worst centers. He is the worst center in terms of pressures allowed. So this is a good matchup for Linval Joseph, in my opinion. He's been playing really, really well. Last week, obviously, had 6 run stops, was a monster. And I think they need him to do that. Did you guys see that he was clocked at 16 miles per hour?
Yes.
Brandon Bailey? That is just insane for a man of his size and his age. To be
what play?
There was a play where he was chasing Jalen Hurts, not the play that he was held on because he obviously was being held. But there was another play where I want to say Fackrell had taken the edge and he was being held, and then Linval Joseph kind of chasing down from that spot. I'll have to go back and watch, but he was definitely chasing Hurts. I remember like thinking like, oh wow, Linval ran really fast then.
Nice.
Think Linval could beat Kirk Cousins in a 40 time?
Probably.
We'll find out.
I think he could.
He could definitely beat Phillip Rivers. That much I know.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tyler, I loved your idea, man. Talking about Cam Newton to the Panthers and Rivers, that whole situation would be amazing to see for sure.
No, never want anything to happen to Herbert ever. No, stay healthy. But if something did happen, and it were relatively soon, not in 5 years when Rivers is 57 or whatever, man, Rivers coming out of that tunnel in SoFi Stadium, back in front of an actual group of fans, that place would sell out. I think even people from San Diego would show up for that one. Just one more ride with Phillip Rivers, whoever they're playing, just a classic Rivers game. They probably lose at the end on a Hail Mary interception to Mike Williams, but you know what? It would be awesome.
Yeah, honestly, on the Rivers thing, like, I really wish the Saints would give him a call. Like that feels like the perfect chance for like a last hurrah kind of thing for him. But Trevor Siemian, I guess.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do something. They apparently tried to call for Teddy Bridgewater, and the Broncos said no. He's off limits. So Von Miller apparently up for grabs in Denver, but not Teddy Bridgewater.
Whatever it takes to blow out the Cowboys, right?
That's how much they hate your luck, I guess.
True, very true. All right, guys, this has been a fun one. Alex, final thoughts before we head out for the day.
I have 5 key bullet points on the state of Minnesota.
A piece of paper over here.
I would like to read to you. All right, I will start with the first one. Jimmy Butler voluntarily decided to play with Ben Simmons and now lives in a city that will be underwater in 10 years, as opposed to living in Minnesota. That was a choice he made. The Vikings have paid Kirk Cousins $115 million in 4 seasons. By my calculations, that's $115 million per playoff win. That sounds like some blue-collar crime going on, in addition to the fact that Minneapolis is #1 in violent crimes per capita. Anyway, Vikings fans talk a lot about the Minneapolis Miracle, and a great, cool moment. But they forgot to leave out 38-7. They got blown out. And on top of that, Nick Foles did not just beat Tom Brady. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in Minnesota, in their building. He owns their franchise too. Anyway, Prince and Bob Dylan might be the only 2 famous people to voluntarily admit to being from Minnesota. Prince is unfortunately dead, one of the greatest artists of all time. So I will read you some Bob Dylan quotes about Minnesota.
What is happening right now?
Bob Dylan said of Minnesota, "It was a dark place, even in the light of day. Curfews, gloomy, lonely, all that sort of stuff. We lived there till the end of the war." When asked if there was something positively unique about Minnesotans, Bob Dylan claimed, "People are pretty much the same wherever you go." Anyway, my 5th and last bullet point is that I find it interesting that the Vikings have ended all of their games and, we talked about really in interesting ways, right? Last-second field goals, last-second touchdowns, incompletions, dramatic overtimes, all that. But, it's kind of interesting to me that, when you think about it, none of the Minnesota games have ended in kneel downs this year. You would think about that with the Minneapolis Police Department and all, right?
Oh, jeez. Wow.
And that's my rant about Minnesota.
Wow, you went there. Oh my. All right.
And good night.
Shout out Derek Show.
So much hatred for Minnesota. I can't even imagine what's going to happen.
Do you get your ass kicked at every city you travel to? Just like Cincinnati, Minneapolis, like Pittsburgh, everywhere you go, you just get the crap beat out of you.
That's why I'm out of the country right now.
I cannot even imagine what next week is going to bring, because to my knowledge, Alex hates Pittsburgh more than any other city in the country. Wow, man. All the smoke today. Wow.
I'll have to find some more stuff.
How did we not lose more than 5 live viewers? What is wrong with you guys? You actually stuck through all of that. That's impressive.
They like hearing Alex's rants, I guess.
Good Lord.
All right, Tyler, final thoughts here, man.
Nope, got nothing else.
All right. Me neither. I hope everyone that is going to the game on Sunday has a wonderful time. Rike from Die Hard Bolt Club wants me to mention that he wants to do charge chants in opposition to the skull chants that the Vikings fans will be doing. So if you want to get in sync with Rike and the Die Hard Bolt Club, please go do that. Go visit them at Thunder Alley. It's a great time for sure. All right. That's going to do it for us today. Alex and his rants. I think that's a good place to end. Alex is the
DVCSD says Alex is the keyboard warrior. 100%.
Yes, Alex wants all the smoke on social media. So be sure to follow him. He's really close to 1,000 followers. So if you want to have a debate about which city is better, yours or his beloved Philadelphia, you can go do
You'll
that.
be right.
That's gonna do it for us. As always, please leave a rating or review on the audio podcast form of your choosing. Like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and we will be going live on Saturday for our weekly Q&A, so please stay tuned for that. And then Monday we'll be doing our recap because Tyler is going to be at the game, so stay tuned for all of those ones. Can't wait for that. We'll see you then.